rounded. And while that wax is still warm, we're going to go ahead and close our model. You can see how we've squished it. And that will begin to take an imprint of the opposing teeth, which will be a wonderful guide for us as to how high we should go in our carving. Now when I pull it apart, you can see we've impressed or imprinted the opposing teeth on our wax. Now I can start to establish my anatomy around that. That becomes a wonderful guide. I know that my cuspal height is going to be about right there. You can see two marginal ridges that were formed by the opposing cusps, or to the mesial and distal pit, I should say. So we've got a pretty good outline as to where my anatomy is going to go. At this point I'm going to turn my heat source off. We're going to start doing some trimming. So I'll pick up my hollow back. First thing I want to do is start to clear some of the embrasures. You can see how we've dripped off some wax down in there. So I'm just going to start to clear a little bit of that out. By clearing the embrasures, I'm forming the outside boundaries of where the crown will terminate. You can see how the wax flowed over onto the adjacent teeth a little bit right there. So I'm just taking and finding the marginal ridge and removing that excess wax that went over the adjacent. Coming around the lingual, you can see again the wax ran down in here a little bit. Working our way around. Again, some of the wax came up over the occlusal of the molar. So we'll just go right through there and form the gingival embrasure, or I'm sorry, the occlusal embrasure. Having established the embrasures, now I can start to shape a little bit. As I look at the tooth, I want to follow the shape of the adjacent teeth. So I'll start to trim and round just a little bit on the facial so that it mimics the adjacent. Now if you have the benefit of a full model like we do, you can also use the contralateral tooth, or the tooth on the other side, the same tooth. That could be a wonderful guide to you as to how you should shape this new crown. You don't always have that luxury. Many dentists take an impression just of the quadrant, of the upper and lower quadrant that they're working in, and then you're forced to use adjacent teeth and make some good guesses. So we started forming our facial side, trying to look at the profile of the adjacent teeth. Sometimes running your finger back and forth across there can help you to know whether you're in the ballpark. If I come back and forth and I feel a protrusion here, then I need to do further reduction. Let's do the same thing on the lingual now. You can see where it's protruding a little farther than the adjacent teeth. It's starting to look better. At this point I'm going to work on my contacts just a little bit. So this is a great time for me to pull out the model. I can come in and look at where that wax flowed when I sent it in a molten state. And I can start trimming. Trimming the wax. Now the part of the wax I want to preserve is the part right here where it touches the adjacent tooth. So I can trim everything beyond that, but I want to preserve kind of an egg-shaped area that touches the adjacent tooth. You can see how I'm just gently pulling the wax away from the margin. I want to go right up to that little edge, but not beyond it. Now we can reinsert our model. You should be able to look at that and not see light through there. That looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and pull out our adjacent one on the distal. And again, you'll see that there was a little bit of overextension of wax, which we can just peel away from there. And again, I'm trying to preserve this little area right here that egg-shaped area that touches the adjacent tooth. So again, there's our margin, or there's our contacts on either side. They're touching, but not, they're not open, but they're not overlapping the adjacent teeth either. So now I'm going to set down my Holland back, and I'm going to pick up my cleoid discoid, and probably use the sharper or the discoid end of that. Looks like a spade. And we'll begin to carve the anatomy just a little bit. A lot of the work had already been done for me by pushing it into that molten wax before, but we'll just delineate and clear this central ridge. Is a little strong for my likes. If I look at the tooth on the other side, what I'm seeing is a strong facial cusp, of course, and almost two lingual cusps. It's almost a tricuspid rather than a bicuspid. So we'll use that as our guide. Now you can see what I'm doing. I'm taking the tip of my instrument down into the bottom part of the groove and using the side of the instrument to form a nice, gentle descent into that grooved area. Now we're going to come over and do the same thing on this other side. Smooth transitions. Let's flip it around and we're going to work on this split part on the inside. The imprint left it with a bubble of wax out here, but even though that's where the imprint left it, we don't necessarily want that. So right where that extension is, we're actually going to form a little groove. And now on the using the rounded side of my cleoid discoid, and then back to the pointed side. Again, we're going to delineate and smooth the edges so we have very smooth, even transitions. Still don't love that marginal ridge through the middle, or that strong ridge, so we're going to reduce that just a little bit. And pick up a little piece of our nylon, wrap our finger around it, gently go over the surface. Very soft, it's a soft wax, so you don't want to get carried away or you'll lose your contact you've established. Also, when I mean here rounding, I'm rounding those little sharp corners. I'm kind of leaving that contact point where it touches the adjacent tooth alone. And there is our tooth. We'll remount our opposing cast. So I just went and got a piece of paper towel. Insert that in there, and when you pull on it, you'll find that there's resistance. When I go to the adjacent teeth, you'll find that there's also resistance there. So we've established good contact, not over-reduced, and not preventing the adjacent teeth from touching. And there's our crown. We didn't spend too much time talking about this, but we did go around very carefully and polish all of the margins. If I pull this out, you'll get a chance to see that we've gone right up to those margins, but not beyond. And there is your crown.